Welcome back to the third season of our Miss Scarlet Summer. I'm Christina Zeiders.
And I'm Tom Downing. This is looking forward to this.
Yeah. If you love watching or listening to Postscript, join in the conversation. You can leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, or you can like, comment, and subscribe at youtube.com/WITF Mosaic.
And if you want to make sure that you're here with that we're here with you on Postscript for season 4 of Miss Scarlet and the Duke, please consider becoming a WITF supporter. Help us grow our catalog of original arts and cultures content by visiting WITF.org/mosaic and give a gift of support.
Yes, please. Even $1 or $2 helps. We thank you for any gift that you make. And so are you ready to get into this episode 4, Bloodline?
Yes.
All right.
So we start off and it's snowing outside in London, and we
didn't even notice the snow.
Yeah, it's a little bit left there. It's not much, but Phelps is talking to Fitzroy and some of the other men about the raid. They're at the bar,
right?
And they're playing dominoes.
They are. Well, Phelps is going, I'm sorry if I keep doing that. By the way, when I was making my notes, I kept flip flopping Phelps and Fitzroy. Yeah. Anyways. Phelps is like going into detail about this raid, and he's talking about how he had to arrest a naked old man.
Yeah, who came down and like hands up. So So they're joking about that, and then it's kind of Phelps kind of tricks Fitzroy into looking away because he says like, "Oh no,
there's this whole exchange because." Phelps is like, well, we're playing for money. That's
they're
right.
Gambling. That's right.
Yeah, they're gambling. He says, of course we're playing for money. And Fitzroy is like, this establishment isn't licensed for gambling.
This is not allowed.
We're officers of the law. And Phelps is like, so no one's going to arrest us then, are they?
Yeah.
And then he goes, oh my God, it's the superintendent. And Fitzroy looks away. And they all laugh.
And while he looks away is when Phelps grabs one of the dominoes that he has to get rid of, and he pockets it. So he has one less to deal with.
Yes. And Fitzroy notices.
Catches it because he comes back and
he's very observant.
He has the makings of a very good detective. Yeah. So this bodes well for his future, but not so much in this immediate moment because he calls Phelps out on it. And Phelps
gets really upset.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's not a bad thing for him because they stand up and I'm like, no. And we know there's going to be a fight.
You can see it go across his eyes. He's like, there's the confrontation between Phelps and Fitzroy because Phelps doesn't like being accused of being a cheat, even though he is.
Right. He did cheat.
And so Phelps stands up and Fitzroy, you can see it go across his eyes that he's like, wait a sec, do I do this? And he's like, yes, I will do this. And he stands up and he's like, there's like that confrontation where he's not going to back down.
Yeah. He says, I should warn you, I've been training with an expert pugilist.
Pugilist, which is boxer.
Pugilist.
Pugilist. We're going to use like the very specific terms for this. So yeah, he's been trained as a boxer. Yeah. And Phelps does the first swing and Fitzroy just dodges. Fitzroy dodges.
Yeah.
So Phelps swings, Fitzroy dodges and just follows up. Fitzroy follows up and just lays Phelps
right on
out.
the nose.
Yeah.
You can see the blood on the bridge of his nose. He's probably a broken nose.
Phelps hits the floor, eventually gets back up. You can see the broken nose, like you said. And he just like there's a moment of weird tension, and then he just leaves.
Yeah, he leaves, and everybody in the bar like.
Fitzroy's a little bit worried at first because there is a little bit of silence.
There's a moment of silence.
And then the bar just erupts in like, cheers.
Yeah.
So, and Fitzroy has a little bit of a smile at the end of it. He's like, oh, wow, this kind of feels nice.
I did that. So the next morning, though, things get awkward because they're all called in. All the men are called into Phelps' office.
Well, it's William's office.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's William's office.
So, we're at Scotland Yard, and all the men and Fitzroy are waiting in William's office. And we don't know why. They don't know why.
And that's when Phelps comes in.
Phelps walks in
important.
And basically says, I said shut it. And that's when we find out that there was a telegram saying that someone has been murdered for the Stepney murders.
Arrested for the Stepney murders. Yeah, right. You got that little flip-flop.
Sorry, I did.
And William's been sent to look into it.
Yeah.
So Phelps in charge. And that's when you're like, oh, this is awkward for Fitzroy.
Yep.
And it's clear that Phelps is going to be a bit of a hard ass about this because that's what he does. He throws his weight around.
Yep.
And you can see Fitzroy's face just kind of like, oh no. as he's realizing it. And as all the other men are leaving, Phelps keeps Fitzroy behind, and he says, "You're mine now, son."
Oh yeah, and he has some whiskey. And he pops the cork off of the whiskey afterwards. Like you're like, oh no, because like Phelps is definitely sitting like in Williams, like at his desk, like feet up, very relaxed.
He's drinking his 3 p.m. whiskey for him.
Yes. Oh yeah, good point. And so the cork pop is the cue for the title sequence.
That's
to start.
The title sequence.
Yep. And so we all these episodes have a really nice, like a little bit of tease, and you're in there, and then it's like right in. So
instant segue. Yeah. Yep. So we pick up again after the title sequence at Eliza's, and Mr. Potts is there with flowers to call on
at
Miss
the door.
Woods.
Yep.
Yeah. And Eliza answers the door and tells Mr. Potts that Ivy's off tending to her mother. She has just a case of gout. She gets it sometimes.
Yes.
And he leaves, and when the door closes, we see Ivy is actually home. So there's a little trouble in paradise here.
When this was happening, I was thinking like Ivy's probably there, and I thought that like Eliza was just basically going to like shoo Mr. Potts away because of their own contention that they have.
Right.
And so when we see behind the door after Eliza like sent Mr. Potts away, it was startling to me to see Ivy there, but she seemed relieved, and she said thank you to Eliza. I was not expecting that. I thought it was going to be something like, why didn't you tell me that Mr. Potts showed up? And it was like this really like a little twist, and like it asked the question like, why is this happening? What is going on here?
Well, Eliza wants to know too.
She doesn't know.
She's trying to push, and Ivy basically says, "I have laundry to fold." Like that's her excuse. She just has laundry to fold.
She doesn't want to talk about it.
And Eliza keeps pushing, and Ivy tells her to mind her own business. And Eliza's like, "I think you'd feel better if you talk about it."
Oh yeah, instead of aggressively folding linen.
Yeah, instead of aggressively folding laundry. Yeah. And Ivy basically says, "If you were an expert in love, you'd have a ring on your finger by now."
Oh,
and then she realizes how mean she was. And she apologizes,
Yep.
I think, right away.
But
she still doesn't want to talk about it.
No, will not talk about it. So we go from there. We cut to Scotland Yard.
Yeah.
Eliza's looking for William, but finds Phelps sitting in William's chair.
Yep.
And Eliza asks about William, like, where is he? And Phelps is completely unhelpful.
No, he gives
deliberately.
her like one-word answers, and she says, do you not know, or are you being deliberately unhelpful? And yes, it's the second one. Deliberately. Eliza says that William has asked for her help with the Bloomsbury case. And I said, a lie? ?
Yeah.
And Phelps tells her that he's given the Bloomsbury case to somebody else on the force, and Eliza says that she's been contracted to work the case. But we find out because Phelps has to see the contract.
Can we see the contract? And it was more of a verbal agreement.
Yeah, some judges would say that's legal and legally binding, and he was like, find one.
Yeah.
So outside, Fitzroy is buffing the Scotland Yard plate outside.
There's a plaque next to the entryway to Scotland Yard, and so Fitzroy, we don't know why, but Fitzroy is like
he's buffing
it.
Eliza comes out and is huffy. She says, "Tell me this is a joke. Phelps, how in God's name is he in charge? Do you have any idea when Inspector Wellington will be back? What are you doing, Detective Fitzroy?"
Just peppers him with questions, and Fitzroy like takes a step, and he's like, he answers them one at a time.
Yeah, he says that's an awful lot of questions.
So Phelps is the longest serving detective, so that's why he's in charge. And then Fitzroy doesn't know when William will be back. And polishing the plaque is because Phelps ordered him to.
And after he finishes the plaque, he has to feed the prisoners and clean the cells.
So Phelps is not taking the getting punched in the face and possibly breaking his nose very well, which not to no one's surprise.
I'm surprised the police commissioner is not back yelling at Phelps for this, though, like downgrading his detective son for...
Oh, yeah, he doesn't even make an appearance.
No, not once.
Fitzroy's dad is kind of out of the picture now that he's more established. So.
Yeah. So,
at least in this episode.
Yeah, I don't know if he's back or not, but Eliza says Phelps is throwing his weight around like a schoolyard bully and tells Fitzroy to stand up for himself. He promises he will. Then
he says, "Nevertheless, salute the uniform, not the man." And then that's Eliza says, "Stand up for yourself." And right at that moment, Phelps walks out of Scotland Yard and says, "Fitzroy, you're with me." and
tosses
him an apple, and Fitzroy immediately, instead of standing up for himself, he's like, "Yes, sir," and just goes. Yep.
He's good at picking his battles, you know.
He's smart.
Time.
Yeah.
Back at Eliza's office, Mr. Potts is outside. And he wants to speak with Eliza. She tries to tell him that she's been engaged by Scotland Yard and she's very busy, which is, we know, a lie.
Yeah.
But he pushes forward because he and Miss Woods are having difficulties in their courtship. Oh, boy. And Eliza tries not to get involved because she
really
knows
does.
Ivy does not want her involved. Like, she doesn't know what's going on, but she knows it's not her business. But he's desperate and insistent. Like, he's annoying her for a change, actually. He's being very insistent.
So eventually she relents, and they go inside, and Mr. Potts tells all about Ivy's excuses as to why they can't be together for different events or different things.
They're always plausible, but
and even mentions that Ivy said that Eliza was cooking for her, which, like, even Eliza's like, really? That this is not a thing.
A good lie.
No. So eventually Eliza gives Mr. Potts advice. That maybe they've been doing too much routine. Suggests maybe that Ivy would enjoy a trip to the music hall.
Right. She suggests he take her out on some, like, new dates.
Yeah, not just the same
old the same
thing.
thing every day. So, like, the music hall, dinner, walk in the gardens, like, surprise her.
Yeah.
Surprise her.
So Mr. Potts is visibly uncomfortable with this suggestion at first.
Right.
But
well,
then
he is a man of routine.
He is.
But his face just, like, lights up then. And you're like,
gets an idea. And we're like,
this idea?
What is it going to be? So he's very effusive, thank you. If there's anything that I can do for you.
Right. And
Scarlet.
This was her moment. She's like, well, you could reconsider not letting women into the mortuary.
Yeah. And he just says, I'll think on it.
Yeah.
So.
And when he leaves, she's like, yes.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's a small victory. Oh, yeah. So out on the street, Phelps and Fitzroy are on the lookout for an idiot, Phelps says.
Yeah, they're looking for the idiot in question is a Michael Galanis. He's the nephew of Nikos Galanis. And then Fitzroy says, as in the gang, and Phelps says, as in the gang. So, like, this is a gang. And they're working the Bloomsbury case, the very one that Eliza said that she was going to be working
Phelps said was reassigned. Yeah.
Reassigned to himself, apparently.
I guess.
Yeah.
So he knows that Michael comes to these outdoor shops every day, and they spot him. Yep. But Michael spots them too, and he takes
recognizes Phelps and just books it.
Yeah, he runs. So Phelps pursues him, and Fitzroy is close behind, but he's not keeping up.
There's a little bit of a stumble that Fitzroy makes, and they're still going. So Phelps definitely catches up with Michael first,
right?
And then immediately pulls something out of his pocket and plants it on
he plants it in Michael's pocket just before we see Fitzroy arrive,
and it's right at the moment too. So at this point,
it looks like it's just before. But we don't know how much Fitzroy can see from his angle.
There's a little bit of ambiguity there as to whether Fitzroy actually saw this happen. Mm-hmm. And you kind of think that he did.
Yeah. Well, later it's confirmed that he thinks that's what he saw. When Fitzroy arrives, Phelps searches, quote unquote, Michael's pockets and pulls out the pocket watch that he planted. And Michael's horrified. He's like, it's not mine.
Nope.
You just planted it in my pocket. And Phelps looks at Fitzroy and says, did you see me put anything in this gentleman's pocket? And Fitzroy says no. And then Phelps is like slandering a police officer. That's a serious offense because he just comes across as a very mean individual. I say comes across because we find out later he's complicated.
There is more depth to Phelps. He's not just a jerk all the time. So,
but he comes across as a jerk
at this point,
most of the time.
Definitely coming across as a jerk and someone who's planting evidence and also cheating at dominoes.
Right.
So, not a lot.
There's nothing saying that he's just a complicated individual so far.
Yeah.
So back at Scotland Yard, Fitzroy is bringing food to Michael, and Michael insists that Phelps planted the watch on him, and he says, you saw him, I know you did.
Yeah.
But Fitzroy he's like, he doesn't want to upset the apple cart. He doesn't want to push things without knowing what he saw.
He says, I'm sorry, I can't, and he leaves.
But he looks really uncomfortable. So I'm like, he did see something.
He feels guilty.
So late at night, at Eliza's, and I love this line. So Fitzroy shows up and he says, "Please forgive the lateness of the hour, but with Inspector Wellington away, you are the closest thing I could find to an honorable man."
To an honorable man. Yeah. Eliza is the closest to an honorable man. So Eliza laughs at this, but then is like, I don't know.
There's a compliment in there somewhere, I think she said. So Fitzroy's there because he believes that Phelps did plant the evidence. Yes. He thinks he saw it happen, but he needs proof before he reports it.
So he's going to pay Eliza to find evidence, to investigate the matter in the strictest of confidence.
Right.
Of course.
Yes. She kind of reiterates that even with the backing of William, like with an honorable man on his side, there's no reason to think that like Scotland Yard would even do anything with Phelps.
Yeah.
But he insists. And
we cut from there because she's kind of like, is she going to take the case or is she not going to take the case? And we cut. The show does this all the time.
Well, she also says, if I find something, then what? And he's like, I could always try the clergy.
Oh, that was earlier. Yes,
too, yeah.
But this whole sequence ends with like this. Like, is she going to take the case?
Right. That's the question in the air. She didn't actually say yes.
She didn't say yes. But then we cut to the very next day, and Moses and Eliza are walking, and she obviously is taking the case.
She's taken the case, and Moses advises her that it's a terrible idea.
Yeah. He says, "Leave it alone."
Yeah. Walk away. But Fitzroy's paid her in advance, which never happens.
No, well, money is good.
And she feels beholden to defend a potentially innocent man. And Moses points out that the kid's part of a crime family.
Yeah.
And has likely done other crimes before. And I thought it was interesting because Moses is constantly judged for his past and like his crime dealing.
Does not seem to have as much leniency in regards to the Galanis family.
So I thought that was very interesting. But Moses does know about the Galanis family, and that's what Eliza's interested in. Mm-hmm. We find out that they are Greek. They've been in London about 20 years, and they make their money from gambling and thieving.
Yep.
And that Michael has been a disappointment to the family.
Michael is the weak link in the family.
Yeah.
He's the Fitzroy of this Greek family.
Oh, he is. He's the Fitzroy.
He doesn't fit in. He doesn't quite fit it. Like, doesn't do the right thing in the right way, the expected way.
He doesn't want to. I don't think he wants to be part of the crime part of the family.
No.
So, Moses, again, insists that she should walk away, that these are serious people who don't want her sniffing around. And she says, "Good thing I have you."
Yeah, yeah.
And he says, "I haven't agreed yet." And she said, "That's what the cab ride is for."
And so, once again, we know this is, we know where this is going.
We know because at the shop in Bloomsbury, where they are investigating this theft that Michael was supposed to be a part of.
Yep, and
there's Moses.
Yeah, it's HL, my man's finest clocks and watches.
Ah, okay, you wrote that down. Good.
And so Moses and Eliza are talking to the sales clerk, someone by the name of Miss Tinsdale.
Yep.
And she says that they took everything. Although even though this robbery happened, she is much more focused on the mental anguish that it has caused to her. It's not so much the robbery itself. And they keep trying to get her back on topic.
But she keeps talking about her health. Yeah, she says, "I'm afraid the shock has seen my health decline." And Moses asks her what happens. She goes, "Shakes, night terrors, generalized anxiety disorder, my physician calls it." And Eliza's like, "I believe my associate was referring to the robbery."
Yeah.
So that keeps happening. But we do find out that there were 12 carriage clocks, 3 dozen pocket watches, and a pair of grandfather clocks.
Big.
Yeah. Taken.
Yeah. Not something you just put in your pocket and walk out with.
Like the pocket watches, yes.
Yeah, grandfather clocks.
But grandfather clocks, not so much.
No.
So they leave, and Eliza's like, well, obviously... Oh, go ahead.
They also dropped a pocket watch on the way out that's shattered, and Miss Tinsdale was so distraught by this again.
Oh yeah,
and so
it was a watch like her father carried.
Oh yeah, and then Moses asked about the crime. When did this happen? And Miss Tinsdale says 12 years ago from tuberculosis, talking about her father dying.
Death. Yeah.
So again, just completely missing.
Yeah, she is probably purposely off track.
We find out more.
In hindsight.
We cut to outside, and Eliza says pretty obviously whoever did this didn't escape on foot with 2 grandfather clocks.
Grandfather clocks. So she is crouched down, examining the curb for paint or anything.
Signs of a carriage that would be able to transport these goods.
And Moses very sternly tells her to get up.
Because
yes, several men are approaching.
They are surrounded.
They are.
They are surrounded by the Greek this gang, and they.
Did you almost say Greek mafia?
I did. It's
this Greek street gang.
Yeah. So they threaten Moses and Eliza in Greek, and Eliza doesn't understand.
Yeah, she's like, "Sorry, I don't understand." And they said, "You need to shut your mouth and do what we say in Greek." But this is no big deal because
surprisingly,
Moses speaks Greek.
Yeah.
Just
really good Greek.
Fluent Greek, apparently.
Surprise. Yeah.
So,
and he says in Greek, "We are private detectives." And then I love this joke. It just keeps coming up throughout the series. The Greek gang member says in Greek, "She's a private detective," and they all laugh.
They all laugh. Yeah. And then they say, "You're funny. Come on this way," but in Greek.
In Greek.
So
Eliza asks, "What is going on? Why are they laughing?" And Moses says, "I told them you were a private detective." And she just is like, even in Greek.
Even in Greek.
Oh.
So the Galanis family wants to talk to them.
Yeah.
So they go back to Eliza's office to do this.
Well, that's the reveal, though. They ask, the boss is waiting for us, and they're like, "Where?"
Yeah.
And we're like, where are they going to go? And it's Eliza's office, and they're there.
They're in her seat, too. They're sitting on her side of the desk.
They have somehow gotten in.
Yep.
Like, all privacy is just out the window.
Her office must not have very good locks because everybody's breaking into her office all the time.
Like, out of all the places, I did not expect, like, the Galanis
Maybe
family.
This is like the running gag is that everybody breaks into Eliza's office.
Well, it's
it's starting to just be a theme.
Yeah, I guess that there's a little bit of it makes sense. She breaks into everything else, so
true. It's fair. It's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So Nikos and Andreas are waiting for her behind her desk, and they know she's asking questions about their family.
And initially I thought that the older gentleman sitting at the desk would have been Nikos, but it's not. The older man sitting at the desk is Andreas, who is the father of Nikos. And Nikos has a really like thick mustache.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's Nikos' father is the one who's in the chair, and Nikos is the one who is in charge of the gang, I guess, at this point. And he's the one who asks, "Who hired you?" And Eliza is like, doesn't really doesn't disclose.
My client.
Yeah, my client. And
they ask Moses, "Who are you?" And he says, "Her translator."
Yeah, which Nikos laughs and then coughs. And this is like, he coughs a lot.
Right.
And so
this is how we know he's ill.
Yeah, I'm like, TB. I mean,
okay.
I immediately
you even diagnosed him. I'm like, he's ill.
Well, it's Tombstone. If you haven't seen the movie Tombstone with Doc Holliday, like, he has tuberculosis. He's coughing all the time, coughing up blood. You always have the thing. So
he does say later that blood is seeping from his lungs.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah. So that's definitely a sign. So I was thinking like, oh boy, this is not good for him.
Yeah. So Nikos insists that his nephew is innocent because he is. And Moses jumps in and asks about a robbery at a townhouse, which is, what's up in the air. Like, Michael was involved in this robbery at a townhouse. So he's pulling his previous criminal history to say, I don't believe you.
And there's some question a little bit earlier about like how the family knew that Eliza and Moses were doing all this. And Nico says that he has people that watch people. So that was just one thing there. So we had that, just file that away. And so like
well, they tell Moses that he's well informed for a translator, and I think he said, that's a callback. It gets flipped back. Okay,
that's a callback because like so Nikos's family has people who watch people,
right?
And like they're talking about all this, and then Moses says that about Nikos' nephew's theft, like he has
and then that's the
and then
then
I missed
Nikos the first one
says like, how did you know that my nephew actually was involved in this other theft? And then Moses throws the same words back in Nikos' face, saying that makes a
lot of sense.
I have people that watch people, and so there's like this uneasy standoff between Nikos and Moses a little bit there because they both have people that watch people.
Yep.
And then
and then Andreas kind of like calls it off. Just is like, no. So Nikos doesn't have faith in the police, much faith in the police, but he believes that there are a few that will listen to the truth, and Eliza has their ear. So basically, William and Fitzroy. And he wants Eliza to give them the name of the real thief, and they throw down a picture.
Yeah, throws down a photo in front of them, and it's on the photo. It says Logan Cooper.
Yep, it's like it's a mugshot. Mm-hmm. And so Moses they leave. Moses fills Eliza in on Logan Cooper. I mean, he's infamous. We've heard his name before. Like, the Cooper gang is constantly coming up.
Yeah.
And Moses says it's possible that Cooper stole the goods, but it's a little convenient that the Galanis family and the Cooper families are in a turf war, and Nikos would love to see him off the streets.
Very convenient if Cooper gets taken off the streets.
Right.
So. And then at this point, we have a little bit of an aside because Eliza asks Moses, why Athens?
Oh, yeah. Well, she asks, like, what were you doing in Athens? Because she's like, where did you learn Greek? And he says, well, I was in Athens. And he says, you get one question.
Yeah, because
but first he says it's complicated. You can ask one question. And she says, why were you in Athens? And he says, because I had to leave Madrid.
And she's like, why did you have to leave Madrid? And he says,
that's one question.
One question. And so she's just left, like, this is outside the office. Like, he just leaves, and, like, she's just like,
she still has no idea what goes on when
Lights
he just disappears
everywhere.
for a while.
Just paint the picture, yeah.
So this is a good spot for us to take a break. And then when we get back, we're going to see where Eliza goes off. She sends Moses off to see what he can find out.
Yep.
And she's going to go on her own adventure. So when we get back, we'll talk about that.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Welcome back. When we left off, Eliza and Moses were going their separate ways, and so we're going to follow Eliza, and she takes us to Scotland Yard. So we're at Scotland Yard.
We don't know this initially.
Yeah, we see Scotland Yard, and we see, like, Phelps coming out of, like, I guess his office and walking by. And we're like, okay, what's happening here? And the camera pans by, and we see, like, someone holding a newspaper, and the newspaper,
a really big newspaper. As soon as Phelps leaves, the newspaper folds down,
and
it's Eliza.
Eliza's there, so that's who we're with.
So she heads off. She's meeting up with Fitzroy. They're going to question Michael. So Fitzroy has to let her into the cell.
Into the jail cell, yeah.
Eliza tries her best to get Michael to talk. I mean, she has a face. Most people just confess things to her. But he does not want to talk to her.
Nope.
And she says, I can't help you if you stay silent. And Michael says, my uncle says, if you ever get nicked, to keep your mouth shut.
Yes.
So he's just like, I'm not talking.
Yeah.
So Eliza starts talking. She knows the robbery took place around 11 on Friday before last. Where were you then? Were you home? And he says no.
So
he is talking
a little bit.
And she says, so you were out? He's like, I'm not telling you anything.
Nope. No.
And she's like, well, if you weren't at home, then you were out. Where did you go? The pub, the music hall, and then Fitzroy goes, the opera.
Yeah.
He's just so fancy. It just assumes everyone else
says,
is.
The opera?
Yeah.
Please be at the opera. Everyone
Then I'll have something in common with you. So Eliza also says, okay, well, you're not going to talk. I know you've never been arrested or to prison, and jail just won't suit you. And she said she goes to leave.
She's putting the pressure on, and she's going to head out.
Yeah. She's like, well, if you're not talking, then I'm going to leave. I can't help you. And he goes, I was at Caledonia Street.
It was at Caledonia Street, all right?
Yeah.
And Fitzroy's like, what's there? Because he's completely innocent. He doesn't know anything.
So
and Eliza gives, like, this knowing look, like, Caledonia Street.
Yes. So she's off to Caledonia Street.
Yeah.
This is probably where she stole that lady's eye in the first season.
Maybe, actually. Yeah. That first episode, I thought that was going to come back, and it did not.
No. So Eliza is looking for Sasha.
Yeah. It's nighttime. There's, like, burning fires everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So she's looking for Sasha, and she finds Sasha.
And she goes, you're not my usual type.
And Sasha says that, yeah.
Yeah, so we know she has sex for money.
Yeah.
And Eliza says, I'm here to ask about Michael Galanis. And she says, I'm working. So she doesn't want to talk to Eliza either, but Eliza offers to pay for her time.
Yep.
And so that's what happens.
Sasha shares that Michael and she just talked. They
sit, they drink, they talk. Mm-hmm. That's all they ever do. He's a good boy.
Yeah, and he doesn't have any other friends. He has no other friends in the gang except for someone named Tassos.
But Tassos, we find out he died. Somebody slit his throat last week. So his only friend is gone. At the mortuary, so Eliza leaves, goes to the mortuary, and tries to call in her favor with her new friend, Mr. Potts.
Oh my gosh! So he was so happy before because as Eliza told him to surprise Ivy.
Yeah, and he's like,
so he was like,
I know what
so
to do.
happy. And then as soon as at the morgue, like calling in the favor,
no, he is mad at her. He slams the door in her face. And
she knocks again, and Barnabas is mad.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
So he says, if you think you're coming in here, madam, you are very much mistaken.
No. And
surprise her, you said. Yeah. Bury things up. So we know that he surprised Ivy.
Yeah.
And it did not go well. It was not well received in his own words.
It was not a good surprise.
So that's a dead end.
Yeah.
But
Door
luckily...
slammed. No.
Luckily, Eliza has a friend at Scotland Yard. 2 friends at Scotland Yard now. Yeah. She's picked up a second. So back at her office, Fitzroy brings her Tasso's files from the mortuary.
There's the autopsy photographs of Tassos Demetrios. So we get his full name. And Fitzroy says, Mr. Potts did seem out of sorts. You know?
Yeah, was that your fault? Everyone assumes it's Eliza's fault. And as Fitzroy, so he drops off the file and he goes to leave, and Ivy shows up.
Yep, she storms in. She is mad.
And I thought it was cute. Fitzroy's like, "Good evening, Miss Woods," and she goes, "Is it?" I'm just like, "I'm dead.
Yeah,
I'm dead."
Yeah. Fitzroy's like, "I'm out of here.
I'm exiting."
Yep.
So we find out Ivy is very mad at Eliza because Mr. Potts proposed
to her. She says, "He proposed to me, Lizzie." And I'm like, oh boy, that was a surprise.
Down on one knee, bunch of flowers in front of everybody.
And Ivy's so mad that she says that Eliza's on her own for supper and laundry.
Oh yeah. Oh, she says, why couldn't you keep your nose out of it? Yeah. Obviously, Ivy said no.
Yeah.
So this is why Mr. Potts is very upset.
Yeah, and Eliza tries to explain. She's like, I tried to not.
And she did. She tried so hard.
She did try hard not to get involved. And oh boy, it just all went.
So here we are. Ivy's mad at Eliza. Eliza has to make her own dinner and fold her own laundry. And at Scotland Yard.
Yep, so we cut to Scotland Yard.
Fitzroy is delivering the files Phelps asked him for.
Fitzroy knocks on the Williams office door, and of course Phelps is in there because he's filling in. And Phelps looks up, and Fitzroy delivers the papers. He's about to go on night duty.
Right, he was put on night duty. And suddenly Phelps is being nice to Fitzroy.
This is weird, like this warning alarms.
This is very suspicious. So Phelps thanks him and then tells him to take the night off. And that's how we find out that he's on night duty. And Fitzroy is just so confused. And Phelps says that it was all for show. He had to look like he was punishing him for punching him. And he can just go back to his usual regular duty now.
He said he had to go hard on him, but he did say, oh, that was a nice right hook.
Oh, yeah. He complimented his right hook.
No hard feelings.
Who's been teaching you. And Fitzroy is like a friend of Miss Scarlet. Yeah. And so, there's no hard feelings. But by the way, he also knows that Fitzroy visited Galanis in the cells.
Yeah, so he says, off you go, but one more thing. And like you said, he says, he asks about why Fitzroy got the key to Michael Galanis' cell. And Fitzroy...
Quick on his feet.
Which, out of all the... Like, some of these characters are not good liars and some are.
Yeah.
He's good because
he
lies quickly without skipping a beat. He says, I was just bringing him food to the jail cell like Phelps told him to do.
Like he told me to.
Yeah.
So Phelps has no reason to suspect him, but he's suspicious.
A little bit. He kind of steps back and Phelps is like, so I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did do that.
It makes sense.
Okay. So I think it landed. I think it actually...
You think that actually threw him off? Okay.
I think that Phelps was like I think he bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Okay.
So we cut to.
I'm giving Phelps too much credit then.
I don't know. I just think that like I was just struck by how good the lie was, which is not something I would have expected.
Yeah.
So we cut to Eliza's, and Eliza says, "Found something," and Moses says, "The watch planted on Michael Galanis matches one of the ones that was stolen."
Right. And we also find out that Phelps had access to stolen goods, and Moses thinks he knows how because Phelps is Logan Cooper's cousin.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah. Plot twist.
Yeah. So there's a family relationship between Phelps and Logan Cooper.
Yes.
So we cut briefly to Scotland Yard, and we see Moses following Phelps.
Right.
And then we cut separately to Solomon's. And,
so Eliza's at Solomon's Emporium.
Mm-hmm.
And she's asking where someone might go to sell stolen watches and clocks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Solomon has no info on clocks. He does have a really large assortment of these little bottles of tonic or something like that.
I was like, he said something about this is for when you feel under the weather. Pepsi right up. And I put in my little question mark, is it cocaine?
Oh, gosh. Well,
Pepsi right up.
Could be.
So Miss Scarlet's like, I don't want what you're selling. I want information. And yes, he says he doesn't know about clocks. He knows about weapons. And so she says, well, could you help me with this? Mm-hmm. And she shows him the picture of Tazos.
This is from the autopsy.
Throat. Yeah.
These are the autopsy photographs that Fitzroy gave her.
Right.
On Tassos Demetrios.
So she's asking what kind of murder weapon would cause a cut like this.
And it's a curve up along the neck. It's like a very arced blade kind of thing.
It's a distinctive cut. And he says that it's from the kukri
blade. It's a curved knife from Nepal.
Yes, and there's two people he knows that uses it. Yeah. One's dead.
So it's got to be the other person.
And the other is Logan Cooper.
Logan Cooper.
Yeah.
Relative of Phelps.
Yep. So this is all like Phelps is involved in something. Solomon also says he knows of a few safe houses used by the Cooper gang,
but he only offers that information because he's like I don't know where and basically Eliza's like, fine, I'll buy the whole crate of your tonics.
Yeah, of the potential cocaine,
perhaps.
And then Solomon gives her the address. Yeah, so it's a little give and take
quid
there.
Pro quo. There a little bit.
So outside of the safe house that she just got the address for.
She's gone through all the lists that Solomon gave. So there's all these other houses that she's crossed off. She's at the final one.
That's fair, yeah.
So and she's there.
Of course it's the last place you look.
Oh, always. And she happens to see Cooper.
Yes.
And she follows him. And I'm thinking, what are you doing, Eliza?
Oh my God, is she alone?
Why?
Why are you doing this without Moses, without anybody?
No.
Even Fitzroy would have been a better option than going alone.
Oh, I'm thinking, is she going to pull the thing where, there's police officers all around us every time?
Is she going to lie again?
No.
There's plainclosed police officers.
Always. No.
No. Logan spots her.
Oh, my gosh. He pulls, she goes around a corner, and he basically, gun
right there,
right to her
head.
Face.
And he heard there was a lady detective asking around.
I love this line. Cooper's like, I heard some lady detectives was asking questions, asking around, and Eliza says,
oh, I didn't write it down, so go ahead.
She says, don't be ridiculous. Being a detective is a job for a man.
That's right.
And I lost it. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Does say that. I can't believe
Straight faced. Don't be ridiculous. Being a detective is a job for a man.
But she very quickly realizes that he's not buying it.
She comes clean and she spills all the things. She's like, and then she finds out that Phelps, who is related to Cooper, is not working with Cooper.
They are not friendly.
No.
He is no fan of Phelps. The robbery was an inside job. Yeah. And
we'd find out more, except
that more men show up and there's this big gunfight. Eliza's right in the middle of
gunshots. Eliza gets brushed to the side. Cooper flees. It's Nikos and his men chasing Cooper down. So it's the turf war situation again.
Turf war. The Galanis family's there. They see Eliza. They know what she's doing.
Yeah, and Eliza makes eye contact with Nikos. Again, big mustache. We know who he is. There's no question.
So back at Eliza's office after the gunfight, Moses rightly tells her that she was very lucky. Yeah. But she's upset that her favorite bag has been shot through.
She holds up the bag and she sticks her finger through the hole where a bullet went. She was really close to getting shot in this one.
So close. She believes that Galanis' men used her to find Cooper. Yeah. But she lost Cooper, and she also knows, she shares with Moses that Cooper says he's not involved with Phelps, that there's no love there.
No connection there.
But Moses knows that Phelps is up to something.
Because he followed Phelps to Franklin Lane, and he saw there were all these boxes being delivered there.
Yeah, to an abandoned bar.
Very curious.
But Moses tried to pick the padlocks, couldn't get in, and Eliza just kind of looks at him like, really? And he's like, you can go try. Mm-hmm. So Cooper denied being involved in the robbery. but something else came up. So Eliza was supposed to be working with Scotland Yard on another case before Phelps turned up.
Yeah.
And she's found references to similar crimes, and there's one name that keeps popping up.
Who could it be?
So we return to the watch shop.
Yes, it's Miss Tinsdale, the person who just had so much anxiety over
generalized anxiety, night terror shakes. Yeah,
she's the robber. It's the inside job. That's the inside
job.
Yeah.
That's the inside. So yes, there have been 6 robberies in the past year from shops like hers, and she has worked at 5 out of the 6.
Yeah.
That is a lot of coincidence.
She basically caves and tells what the deal. So Galanis, the family pays her.
Yep.
But this time Galanis didn't ask for this robbery.
She doesn't know who did this robbery.
This one's a weird.
This one was real.
We almost had it.
But she's been told to keep her mouth shut, not by the Galanis family.
No.
By the policeman.
Phelps.
Yes, it's Phelps. So what is Phelps doing?
So we follow Phelps, and he meets with Andreas. So we see him talking to Andreas in a carriage.
Right. They are connected.
Yeah.
And they move inside to talk.
Yeah.
So Eliza and Andreas move inside to talk. Eliza asks
There's the confrontation there. Yeah.
What his business is with Detective Phelps, because this is curious. And we find out that Michael is a good boy and thieving is not the business for him, and everyone knows it except Nikos.
So his uncle doesn't know it. His uncle wants Michael to be in the business.
Right.
And Michael's grandfather,
he
Andreas,
is very much like Fitzroy. He's being forced into the business.
I actually had that written down at this point too. I said, it's again because Michael is the Fitzroy of the Galanis family.
Yeah.
And so Michael's grandfather, Andreas, doesn't want him to be in the family business.
No, well, Michael is scared to get caught, and Andreas doesn't want him in the business, so he arranges for Tazos to do the robbery instead. And he says something like Tazos loved Michael like a brother.
They were the best friends.
He would have never exposed the fact that he was doing these crimes on behalf of Michael.
It was really a good idea in this situation because it would actually have protected Michael from his uncles, because his uncle would have thought that he did the crime, even though he's not a criminal by nature.
Right.
And Tazos, who is the only friend that Michael has in the entire family,
would never tell a soul.
Yeah.
And then we find out that Tazos was unfortunately just murdered. He was drunk. He picked a fight with the wrong person.
In this case, Logan Cooper.
You're right, in the wrong part of town.
So unrelated to the robbery. So those two things are not connected.
Right. The robbery and the murder are not connected. No. So because Cooper murdered Tazos, Nico put a price on Cooper's head.
Yep.
And if Michael, who has been arrested for this crime, is freed, he will have to kill Logan Cooper.
Because Nikos would force him to, because that's his entry into the business is this murder.
And so, Michael has never taken a life.
And that's how we find out why Andreas has this relationship with Phelps because he made sure that Phelps would plant the evidence and get Michael off the street.
Put him away for a few years because we find out, like we assumed, that Nico is ill. And by the time that Michael would, TB, because blood seeps from his lungs, Michael would leave prison and Nico would be dead. And
problem solved.
That's it. Then Michael can just be out of the business with, Andreas's blessing. But if Eliza proves his innocence,
here's the rub.
He'll be released and be forced to kill. So going to prison is the only way to save him.
So Eliza, her instinct is to prove the innocence, but to do so would actually put Michael in a position where he would be forced to take a life.
He would be forced to commit a crime, and a big one.
So here's my takeaway from this moment right
here.
Go. Okay. So this is where Eliza is put in a situation where she has to make a decision. And this is another instance where it'd be better if Eliza just stayed out of it.
Right.
So this is an example of where if she stayed out of it, things would be fine. If she would have stayed out of Mr. Potts and Ivy's business, they probably would have been fine.
Well, or they would have never found each other again. But it would have been a natural thing. They would be choosing.
They would have been doing this. So this is one of those both of these two instances where like her involvement actually could make things worse.
Yes.
So I just want to throw that out there.
She puts herself in situations where there is no good option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but she says to her nature, she says, I can't stay quiet.
Right.
And Andrea says that's the only way to save him. The only way
to save him. So at Eliza's house.
We cut to Eliza. It's nighttime.
It's nighttime. Eliza has this conundrum, this moral conundrum.
She's there with Ivy.
She's trying to find the sewing box when Ivy comes home to fix her bag, and Ivy hands her the box, and Eliza then starts trying to find a patch inside it.
She's
like,
do
you even know what you're doing?
Ivy asks, do you even know any idea what you're doing? And Eliza's like, not remotely.
So Eliza says, I hate when you're angry with me. And Ivy admits that she's only a little angry at Eliza. Yeah. It's more like the situation itself.
She's more worried about where her and Barnabas's relationship might lead.
And not because it's going badly, because it's going so well.
The opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite. She has a good problem. Barnabas likes her so much, and she likes him so much. And she is afraid that if things continue, they will get married. She will have to move out, and she won't see Eliza every day. And Eliza's like her daughter, and she doesn't want that to change.
Yeah, she doesn't want to leave the house. She doesn't want to leave Eliza. She doesn't want to leave her life.
And then she also adds that she doesn't know if she wants just marriage and kids and family. She thinks, well, maybe I want more. Seeing you do all that you're doing has made me wonder if I want more. So is Ivy going to be the first female lawyer in London? Okay, that's just my side. She
has all the makings. We have it's Ivy, Fitzroy, Eliza. We got a lot of candidates for great. So like
lots of spin-off series possibilities.
A lot of detectives. But Eliza is very supportive of Ivy in whatever Ivy wants to do.
Right. She says you have to do what's best for you.
And but she says, but only if Ivy fixes her bag.
Right. Only if Ivy fixes her bag.
The bullet holes.
She doesn't know how to fix it, and it's her favorite bag.
And I also noticed at this point that Eliza's drinking whiskey.
Oh yeah,
and like she never used to drink whiskey, but who drinks whiskey the most in this show?
William.
And so I'm thinking to myself, she misses him. She misses William. She may not say it out verbally.
That's what she does. When she misses William, she drinks whiskey.
I think so.
Because it reminds her of him.
They don't say it, but that's my read.
That's a really good read on that, because I feel like that's probably true. I drink gin martinis because that's what my peepaw drank.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's like every time I drink one, I'm just like, this is my favorite drink. This is my peepaw.
Yes.
So
I think that's the case
here. So now that Ivy's got all that off her chest and kind of has a resolution, it's time for Eliza to share her dilemma.
Yeah.
And she basically says that I have to choose between two options. And Ivy starts going, when you were a little girl, and Eliza just looks at her like, come on.
Oh my goodness.
And she's like, when you were a little girl, and I made you choose between two things you didn't want, you always found a third.
Third option.
So there's got to be a third option here.
And so there's that glimmer of like, there is a third option.
I can make a third option.
Yeah. Not everything's binary, so that's good.
So the next morning, I assume, Eliza goes to the shootout scene to pull a bullet from the wall.
This is the alleyway where she was shot at and barely got, almost got shot.
She almost got shot.
Yeah.
She pulls a bullet from the wall from Cooper's gun, one that Cooper fired. And back at her office, she compares the bullets used at the robbery
with that of a previous.
To the bullet that she just pulled out of the wall.
Well, and it isn't the ones at the robbery. It's the ones from a previous. It's because there weren't bullets fired. It's actually from a previous criminal robbery. Activity thing. Yeah,
it's the Winchester Bank, right?
Yes.
That comes up later.
Yes. Yeah. So it wasn't the one where the clocks got stolen.
No. Oh, right. Yeah. Not that robbery.
You meant that. I apologize.
Okay. No, yeah. I was getting that muddled. But the bullets look like they match.
They match.
And she's going to see Nikos, and Fitzroy, who's also there,
is coming
along with her.
So we cut to Scotland Yard, and this is it was a little bit of a jump because I'm like, wait a sec, they're in their interrogation room with both the heads of the Galanis family.
And I was like, is this Scotland Yard? That doesn't seem
it's
like
the interrogation room.
Yeah, it is the interrogation room.
And so like the family apparently just is going to go there. Fine. I was surprised that
we're not arrested.
Yeah,
so yeah, we'll
Andreas
come
and Nikos are both there.
Yeah. So Eliza this is her third option. She presents her third option.
She has a proposal for both Nikos and Andreas.
Yes. So Michael is innocent.
Yep.
And she can prove that.
Yes.
The robbery was carried out by Tazos, and she won't reveal how she found out.
No, and there's a little bit of an unspoken Andreas, the grandfather, looks at Eliza, and Eliza looks back at him, and there's like
a
Andreas,
moment where they're like, I got you.
Andreas is worried, and Eliza is reassured.
Yeah.
Doesn't spill the beans that Andreas is the one who did this. So.
Right. And she knows she can get the charges against Michael dropped.
In exchange.
Yes, in exchange.
For Logan Cooper, because we already know that the Galanis they're out there scouring the streets.
Right,
they
want to get rid of Logan Cooper.
They will find him.
Yes,
especially since Eliza kind of led them to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so this is when we find out about the previous bank heist at Winchester Bank.
Yep, he's been wanted since, but the case against him collapsed.
With lack of evidence. But now they have the evidence because the bullets match.
She has the ballistic evidence now that it was him.
And so then Nikos says, I want Cooper to suffer. And Eliza says, at least 15 years hard labor. Hasn't there been enough death already?
Yeah.
And that resonates with Andreas.
Yes.
The grandfather.
The moment. They don't actually agree, but it's assumed that they agree.
It's implied. We do that thing where the question's out there and we cut to a different scene.
Right.
We do that all the time.
Because now we're at Phelps' abandoned bar.
Yep. This is the Blue Rose Bar. Phelps.
And Fitzroy confronts they both, Fitzroy and Eliza both confront Phelps about being paid to arrest Michael.
Yeah. And Eliza has an offer for Phelps, and she says, "We'll keep quiet about Phelps's relationship with his cousin Logan Cooper."
Right, because he actually shouldn't be working for Scotland Yard without disclosing that.
He didn't
disclose it.
So that could actually get him canned,
there's a little bit of blackmail.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
So, but in return for not disclosing that information, that relationship between Phelps and Cooper, they want to have the charges dropped on Michael Galanis.
Yep.
And this is when we find out there's actually redeeming quality to Phelps.
So Phelps is like, I'm not a bent copper. This is the first time I've taken money for an arrest. And they all they don't believe him because he cheats and lies all the time.
Yeah. Dominoes.
But he said Michael needed to be put away for his own good.
Safety. So he was doing it for a good cause. He also got the money. And the money was actually for?
He's building a gym where kids can get off the street and learn self-respect and discipline. Like he didn't have when he was a child. So Phelps had, I guess, a difficult life.
Yeah.
And that explains a lot.
Yeah. Didn't have the benefits that Fitzroy
had, that gold, that silver spoon in his mouth.
So I actually wrote in my notes, Phelps actually is good.
I know. I said,
Surprise.
Phelps is a good man?
What?
What? And I'm like, oh, now I feel bad for thinking he was just a big jerk this whole time.
And so we have that.
So I do like complicated characters.
He's complicated.
I like Phelps.
Yeah. And so then we cut from there to outside of Scotland Yard. Fitzroy says to Eliza, "You never cease to amaze me, Miss Scarlet." And is that a compliment? Because Eliza's like, is that a compliment? Because you never cease to amaze me.
Right.
And Fitzroy unabashedly, most definitely, it is definitely a compliment.
He thanks Eliza for helping him, and so there's this moment that they have this whole back and forth about how Fitzroy hopes Nico will go easy on Michael. And Fitzroy says, now that this is all figured out, he's going to stick with the detective work because he wouldn't make a good priest. He's bad at public speaking, and wine makes him break out in a terrible rash. And Eliza laughs and he goes, "No, it's really quite bad."
They have a moment here.
They have a moment. And I'm like, maybe Fitzroy would also be a good match for Eliza. I'm like, I wouldn't hate that either.
At this point in the episode, I'm like, that could actually happen. Yeah. I think that could work.
It's so sweet. And because he respects her as a private detective. And
she never ceases to amaze him.
Yeah. That's exactly what she needs. She needs somebody who's going to be like, supportive. Wow, you're great.
Yes. And then there's like an awkward handshake. And so we leave them at that. So we don't know what the future might hold.
I know. We have no idea. Because we're coming up on the end of this season. Nothing has been figured out yet.
Brave New World. We'll find out. But so we leave that. Reluctantly, we leave that. And we go back to Eliza's home. And we find out, she's there, Ivy and Barnabas come on in.
Yeah, they're both excited and happy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my gosh. So Barnabas and Ivy are engaged now.
Oh, my gosh,
so
that's happening.
Asked again. She said yes. And they're going back and forth about when's the wedding going to be, and Barnabas wants it to be really, really soon.
Oh yeah, and Ivy's like, no, it's going to be
a long engagement. Long engagement.
There's no ring. Maybe you'll get the ring in weeks or months.
Yeah. So Barnabas at the end,
Eliza's actually very happy about this whole situation as well.
She wants Ivy to be happy, and Barnabas makes Ivy happy for some reason.
Yes,
and it can't hurt to have Ivy in Barnabas's ear, because maybe this means that he will let her into the mortuary
more often. Yeah,
because now everything's okay.
He kind of apologizes, but then doesn't take everything back that he said previously.
I did mean some of it.
And then, he gets a little bit of the side eye from Ivy, but it's all good.
He
it's
doesn't
a happy
back
moment.
off. Yes.
Happy moment.
But so Ivy and Eliza both leave, and Barnabas is just standing there what just happened? Long engagement, months, what? Yeah. He wants this to be very quickly, but Ivy wants the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we cut away from that touching moment to Eliza's office.
Yeah.
And Phelps comes in.
Yep. He walks into her office.
I was thinking it was going to be William walking in, but no, it's Phelps.
And he just wanted. He's acting like he's doing her a favor.
He's delivering the information that William is back.
Yes.
But there's more.
She's like, well, you didn't have to come all this way to tell me that. And but he's not at work.
He's there. He came to see the look on her face.
He's not at work. He's having a day off because he's with Arabella. That little hussy. No, I'm just kidding. Arabella seems like a really nice
frenemy.
Frenemy.
Well, they had William and Arabella definitely had some chemistry at the end of the previous episode.
Arabella
they were in together.
Is more what he's looking for in a life mate, to be completely honest. Somebody who's going to be his wife in the traditional sense, cook for him, clean for him, raise his babies.
Yep, all these things.
So we flashed to Arabella's. Eliza's looking on like a creeper from around the corner.
like seeing what happens. And
I think we've all done this in middle school, spying on our crush.
And so William and Arabella come out and they share a kiss.
Oh, yeah. They're flirting and then they kiss. And I'm just like, as much as I think Eliza has so many feasible romantic options in this show, it stabbed me in the heart a little, because I think she's always assumed that William would be there for her when she was ready for it.
I think it stabbed her in
the heart a
little bit too. And
not fair to William.
We see that we had the close-up of William and Arabella kissing. We cut to a close-up of Eliza just having that hit her.
Yeah.
And that
is the close.
Is where we end the episode.
So listen, Eliza has so many potential romantic possibilities.
Yes.
We know that the will they or won't they is with William.
Yes.
Because they've known each other so long.
It's with a few.
But,
it's primarily
now
William.
There's also Nash in the mix.
Nash is in
After
the mix.
that last episode.
Yeah.
And Fitzroy definitely has a crush on her.
Yeah.
Definitely admires her. They get along really well and work well together.
Would probably be the ideal candidate, I think,
you think
at this
so?
point. I know you.
And I want Moses.
but we know that's a long shot.
Yeah.
But that would be your ideal.
That would be my ideal.
The best matchup.
Yes.
So there's a lot of intrigue and how these relationships will develop.
Yes.
If
in
will
addition
develop.
to all the mysteries she has to solve,
Yeah.
she has to figure out where her heart is.
The relationship is the real mystery of this show, really.
That's the long game mystery.
Game.
Like, who will she be with?
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. So,
yeah.
So thank you for listening and watching us on Postscript and following along with us on this journey of mystery.
Right.
What's going to happen?
Everybody knows I'm here for the romance. You can find us at witf.org/mosaic, and we greatly appreciate any gifts of support you can make.
Yeah, and if you have any thoughts or things you'd like to share with us about the season, please email us at postscript@witf.org or comment on this week's short on Instagram at witf.org. WTF.org, not dot.
Yep, no dot in
dots.
there.
No dots.
And I can't believe that we're more than halfway through the season. We only have 2 episodes left.
It's
so we will see you next week for episode 5.